Hello. We are, or should be, live now. I don't know if anyone's joined. It looks like no one's joined yet. So I don't know what to say. Maybe this is going to be one of those extremely quiet Sunday nights. Looks like a few people popped in. Say hi in the comments. And since this is a Sprints stream, tell me what you're going to be reading. I've had honestly a real hard time getting back into the reading. I mentioned it in one of my last video. Hey, Colin. Hey, Jerome. I didn't read very much for a number of months. And I just recorded a video, which is coming out tomorrow, on what I'm going to do next. And I did not very well decide what's coming next. Tori's not late at all. Tori, she'd stop by and she'd be late.
Well, because you can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you were mentioning that maybe like 2 p.m. Eastern, but it's actually 2 p.m. Central Time. So that worked better because I thought it was going to be an hour earlier than it was.
Oh, I thought I was 6 hours ahead of Eastern.
You might be, because I'm at 2 o'clock right now.
Okay, that's not Eastern, and that is 6 hours. Okay, I guess I got that wrong. All right, so maybe.
So I wasn't late.
No, not at all. No, you were exactly on time. I just started. I was just saying that I, in the video I've got coming out tomorrow, I was going, okay, I'm back on YouTube. What do I do now? And I kind of did a tour of my bookshelf, noting all of the started but unfinished series I've got going. And yeah, instead of that. Well, and like this morning, I was having my breakfast. And I always read in the morning, and I sometimes read at night. And this morning, I was sitting there with my coffee, and I was just staring at this huge bookshelf I have, and I was just feeling really confused about where to start again. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly, I remembered Something Wicked This Way Comes. And I thought, it's almost Halloween. It's a spooky book. And I started it this morning, and I'm loving it so far. Bradbury is a genius, obviously. And it's an interesting book. I go back and forth between feeling like it's overwritten and then feeling like it's poetry.
Yeah.
You know, and you just need to read it. Take a little time to get the extra meanings that are in every second or third sentence. And so far it's not what I'd call horror. Mm-hmm. It may get there, but it's spooky as shit. He's building a spooky, tense atmosphere, like something is coming and it's not good. And that's he's doing that really, really well. He's also capturing the feeling of being an early teenage boy really well.
Nice.
It's really good so far. I'm enjoying it. Hello, Matt Keane. I'm only saying Keane to differentiate you from me. Matt says it's a good read. Yeah, I got the recommendation from Mike. It's one of Mike's favorite books. And he's talked about it a number of times on his channel. And I've always had the title in my head since I was a teenager, because it's a quote out of Macbeth by Shakespeare. Mm-hmm. And I recognized that when I heard the title, because I love Shakespeare. Mm-hmm. And I've always thought, anything with a title like that, I have to read it someday. Yeah. Something Wicked This Way Comes is just a cool title.
It's a very cool title. Do you have a favorite Shakespeare?
I'm a fan of Romeo and Juliet, strangely.
Okay.
Which is, it's not a cheerful tale, but I'm a big fan of Renaissance Italy. And the whole Medici's and all of that stuff that was going on there, and that's kind of where it's set. Jerome says YouTube isn't loading for me. I don't know what's going on. Weird. Okay. Yeah, I like that one. I like Midsummer Night's Tale or Midsummer Night's Dream. It's silly mostly, but I like Shakespearean humor. I think he did absurd situations and you know, farces pretty well. You know, so that's fun. I don't know. I haven't read everything by Shakespeare by any means, but I've read a lot, and I could probably come up with a much longer list. But yeah, and then I think of it as also like reading Shakespeare and then Shakespeare movies.
Yeah. Yep.
Like The King. Have you seen The King with Timothée Chalamet?
Not yet, but I want to.
Oh my God. Watch The King.
Okay.
It's actually, it's not. No, that's not the one that's Shakespeare. There's a Richard V or whatever it is movie, which is set in kind of, it's making Richard into Hitler.
Interesting.
So the whole visual aesthetic of it is World War II and Nazi-ish soldiers and all of that, which is pretty damn cool.
Mm-hmm.
By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes. Yes, it's the witches, the three witches in Macbeth.
Macbeth is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, one of my top two Shakespeare.
I think I might have Macbeth trauma because we were forced to read it in high school.
That's fair.
And I mean, I liked it, and honestly, that's where I learned to like Shakespeare, and that's why I bought a complete Shakespeare volume one day and have read a lot of it. But I don't know. I do like Macbeth. Hamlet is also awesome. Hamlet is awesome. The first modern man who was unable to decide what to do. Yeah, he was the first. Like in literature, I would say he was the first modern man who was more thinking than action. Interesting guy. Hello, Andrew. Hello, Kay.
Hi, guys.
Good to see you guys. Huh. Jerome says he can see the chat, but the stream doesn't load. That's weird. It seems like really everybody else is able to see and hear us. Anyone else? Let us know if there are problems. Andrew likes Shakespeare, but hasn't read any in a long time. Yeah, I haven't in a while. Every now and then I'll go back to it. Yeah, high school has such a way of killing good books. Yeah, I've seen some schools that, not the schools I went to, but I've seen some schools where what they do is they say, okay, we're reading this kind of literature. Here are 3 or 5 books, pick one. And I think that's a lot cooler. We just had like, now we're doing Shakespeare, we're reading Hamlet. Right. Shut up and read, you know? So, yeah. Hello, Jim. Let's get some work done. We should not think of it as work. I am taking Tori's lead, actually. I am working really hard not to plan anything I'm going to read, and just to read what I feel like at the time and just enjoy it, and not let myself be pressured by having a channel or by having, I don't know what it is, 6 or 7 unfinished series or any of that. I've got so many unfinished series, and then I picked this up today and I was like, fuck it. I'm reading Something Wicked This Way Comes because it's Halloween, and I've wanted to read this for ages. Yeah. What are you reading right now, Tori?
So once I took TBRs off my channel, it's been good. But one of the things that I'm now learning on the opposite side that I had forgotten about is when I finish a book, I have this weird little like anxiety taste test phase where I try or start a bunch of different books before I really land on one. So I have like 6 books started right now. But I am officially going to be reading through Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf.
Yeah, that's meant to be awesome. I haven't read it.
I just got through the foreword this morning, but I just finished a Vietnam War fiction called The Short Timers by Gustav Hosford.
Okay.
Which was a very heavy read, but very good. I mean, it's definitely, it's like when we read Things They Carried, it's like, it's hard to describe. Yeah, it was an enjoyable book. Isn't really the,
The
it's
Things
not
They
really the
Carried
way
was
to
not
describe that.
fun.
No,
No.
it's brilliant, and
It's awesome. I'm
it's
so glad I read
profound.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm
exactly.
super glad I
So
read it, but it wasn't fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I needed some of this before I
Yeah.
start this.
Yeah. This Something Wicked is also not, I mean, it's thicker than that, but it's not
Yeah,
that thick. I mean, I've read so much Malazan that now when I look at this and I'm like, oh, it's a 260-page book. That's like an afternoon.
right.
It's not quite, but
Yeah, pretty
I'll be
close.
finished with it Monday, Tuesday, maybe.
Yeah.
It's not that big a deal. Speaking of military fiction, Jerome is reading the third Black Company book, and it's
Nice.
fantastic. I've read most of the series. I think I kind of got over Black Company Overload around the fifth one or something. But Tori and I are not doing TBRs anymore, but we had a plan a while
We
ago
did.
to
Yes.
read the Black Company together,
We should revisit that.
or at least the first book. Yeah, I mean,
in a little bit.
let's see if our moods coincide
Yes.
sometime
Yeah.
soon, where we both want to pick it up.
The hard part, I think, is like removing the TBRs in my mind gives me more freedom to feel like doing more buddy reads, because then it's not, the TBR plus the buddy reads was just a lot of, I have to read these books.
Yeah.
So now I'm hoping by opening my TBR that I can just, I'll have my one or two buddy reads every once in a while, and that's going to be a lot less stressful.
Yeah. Yeah. I missed it earlier, but Andrew the Wiz asked me how I'm doing. This, funnily enough, this is one of the reasons you don't want to tell people that you have problems with depression. I'm not dissing you, Andrew. It's really, really kind of you to ask, but it always makes you feel like, I don't know, it gives you a moment of feeling like there's something wrong with you and people have to worry about you, which is in a way, I guess, true. But it doesn't always feel good. But Andrew, I know you are asking in the kindest and warmest way, and I'm doing pretty good. I'm really excited about something. I've already told Tori about it. Yesterday, I've mentioned this before. I think I live in a 90 square meter flat, which Americans can translate into feet for themselves. And I live alone. And I've lived alone for a couple of years. And sometimes that's not so good, especially like for mental health. And I've been spending way too much time alone. And yesterday, I met my new cat.
I was so excited for you.
I haven't got her yet. I just wanted to go out. It's actually like an hour and a half drive total to get to this breeder, because Maine Coon breeders don't live in the middle of a city like Berlin. And she is a beautiful Maine Coon. I can maybe share a photo. Let me see how this works.
Yeah, you should be able to. She's so pretty.
You have no slides. Okay. Present, share screen. Talk about something while I'm doing this. I'm just figuring it out. There we go. Okay, I think I've got it figured out, actually.
Okay. Oh, good.
There. This is going to be, I think, from Wednesday or Thursday, my new cat. She is a she, but I am naming her Fitz for obvious reasons. And since she's a cat, I don't think she'll mind. She is lovely. And just like, I don't like kittens. Kittens are a lot of distraction and a lot of noise and a lot of work. And I'm too old for that shit. So I like getting a slightly older cat. She's only a year and a half old. But she's old enough that she's not crazy anymore. So yeah, that's Fitz.
I'm very excited. You know, you're going to have to do cat cameos in your video now.
I think it's going to be unavoidable, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Fitz is just going to be in my videos because she wants to, whether
Well,
I
and I
want
mean,
it or not.
what's going to happen, and this is what happened with Pippin on my channel, is it's actually Pippin's channel. I just work here, you know.
Right.
So yeah, Fitz will take over your channel.
Yeah. Yeah. I will do lots of Fitz cameos, I'm sure.
Love it.
I was told there would be no math. Where was there math?
The 90 square meter flat comment.
Oh yeah. Someone's smart. Someone can translate that into feet. I can't. I could do it quickly if I typed into Google. I mean, you can just type 90 square meters in feet into Google and it'll tell you. You don't actually have to calculate it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Jerome is leaving. YouTube is not working for him. Pity. Okay, Christopher Navo said he might join us after his D&D game, but apparently his D&D game is stretching on. So he's just saying hi. Yeah, Matt, Fitz. It gets even better. I already have plans because I mean I live alone in a flat, and cats, especially very social cats, which Maine Coons are, don't really love being alone very much. And I do work from home. I spend a lot of time in the flat. So Fitz wouldn't be alone that much. But I think long term, I'm going to get another cat who will be smaller and white or tabby. And of course, he or she is going to be named the Fool. So I'll be living with Fitz and the Fool. They already live rent free in my head. So,
right. That's awesome.
Yeah. You've got a Pippin. Have you also got a Mary?
No, we have a Pippin, and he is definitely very similar to his namesake. He causes a ton of mischief. He is a foodie, and makes us like. There's a lot of Gandalf to Pippin moments in my house where Ben or I are very upset with him because he's done something very naughty. Yeah, but we have another.
You yell "fool cat. Of a took."
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah, my older cat I've had she's 12 now. And I've had her since she was 6 months old, and her name is Novia, which is Spanish for sweetheart.
Oh.
So yeah, she's my baby.
I'm actually thinking of the next sort of bigger sort of ongoing thing on my channel. It would be a Lord of the Rings reread.
Ooh.
I've reread it more times than I can remember. But I haven't reread it in a decade, maybe. I used to reread it like every 2 years, kind of like clockwork. And somehow for me, because it's so much, I mean, it's about a lot of things, but it's very much about loss and the ending of things. And, you know, it's got a certain kind of autumny feel to it for me.
For sure.
Yeah, I was thinking sometime soon. And I was thinking of doing that as a vlog kind of format.
Yeah.
Which I've never done before.
Love vlogs.
Yeah. And concentrating kind of on the, like, I'm older. This is the fantasy I grew up with.
Yep.
You're maybe much younger. I mean, you are, obviously, but whoever's watching may be much younger and have only seen the movies. And why should you read it? And why is it awesome?
I don't know who you're talking about, Matt.
I'm not sure, but like maybe you'll remember when you watch those videos.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to read them. Those are one of the older series that, like, there's a couple other older series that I'm like, if I never get to these, it's okay. I'm not worried about it. But Lord of the Rings is definitely, although one of the things that has put me off of it thus far is that in the films, and I think we've talked about this before, Helm's Deep is by far my favorite. To Two Towers is my favorite movie of the three. I love Helm's Deep. It's one of my favorite, it probably is my favorite battle sequence, or one of my top 3 of all time.
Yeah.
And somebody was like, yeah, in the book, it's like 2 sentences. And I was like,
that's bullshit. No, it's not. It's not.
Okay, good.
Not at
that
all.
makes me
Not
feel better.
No, it's not. It's, I mean, I couldn't say off the top of my head how long it is, but in comparison to the length of the story,
sure.
In the written story, it feels shorter than it feels in the movie story.
Sure.
Right. But they talk about evacuating people to the caves, and the bit where Aragorn jumps out in front of the gate and defends the gate, that's in there, and Gimli and Legolas counting kills, that's straight from the book.
Love it.
And the like hair standing up on end moment when Gandalf comes over the hill with the Rohirrim, and that's all from the book. Like,
Nice.
I thought the Helm's Deep in the movie was a really, really good visualization of Helm's Deep in the book.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Although the fortress in the movie is ridiculous. Like, if you know anything about fortifications and defending fortifications, it's a really weird castle. Like,
it is
I
very
wouldn't want to
weirdly laid out. Yeah.
defend it. Like, it's not a real good idea. It basically funnels all of the enemy straight into one point. There's no way to get out. It's very, very strange. Really long curtain wall that you have to defend, like, which is weak all the way along. It's really strange. Anyway, Jim says, I love how Tolkien's world is slowly dying. There's always a sense in the real world that our past, whether tinted by nostalgia or longing for familiarity, that we're losing some sense of magic. Yeah. No, I mean, I think with him going through the war and the Industrial Revolution and growing up in that time, I think it's really clear that he's like, the world used to be more magical. The world used to be better. And I mean, in a lot of ways, I don't agree with his nostalgia or his love of monarchy. But it always really touches me. Like, whenever I read Lord of the Rings, I'm always like, "Ah, the elves are going west. The world's just for men now, and men are kind of suck." Yeah. So anyway, we have probably blabbered for long enough, considering it's a stream. Let's what is everybody reading, first of all? Let me edit this, actually.
I will probably be working on a video script for this first
also
script.
Totally fine. So it's 22 past 8. Let's read until 8:50. Does that make sense? Whoops. I screwed it up again.
It's all right. I always have to have my audience do the math for me to figure out when we're stopping.
So let's start reading and read until 10 to 9 my time. Actually, I screwed it up again. It should be X50 because you're not in Berlin. I don't think any of you are in Berlin.
I would love to visit Berlin someday.
Do it. It's a nice city. It's better in spring and summer, though.
Okay, noted.
Just like pretty much anywhere. But yeah.
I'm so jealous, Brian. I want to read the Sun Eater series, and I can't start any new series right now, but I really want to.
I've got the first one on my shelf, and I was also looking at it this morning going, actually, that'd be cool. And I'm like, no, I really shouldn't start a series. I can let myself get away with a standalone, but I really shouldn't start another series. Yeah. Anyway, let's read. See you shortly. Hello. I'm keeping it quiet. Somebody told me once when I do these sprints that it shocked them. And Mr. Punk Rock Cereal Bowl has joined us.
What's up? What's up?
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Are you a Robert or a Bob or a Robbie?
I'm a Robert.
Okay.
In the life cycle of a Robert, I started out as a Robbie. I've made it to Robert. I haven't graduated to Bob yet, though.
When you get my age, you'll probably have to be a Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I could
enough.
grow a beard, I would be a Bob. But
You
I
can't grow a beard.
No.
I may have to kick you.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I need to get that crochet beard that I can wear for these live streams.
You do.
I do.
You absolutely
It's gonna happen.
Do. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny with these live streams. I'm way behind on BookTube. Because like the whole time I was away, I was not recording videos, I was not really reading very much, and I wasn't watching YouTube very much, or BookTube specifically very much. And I've been trying to catch up, and I think it was Chatting with Nuts where he was talking to Philip. And Philip was saying that Chatting with Nuts is somewhat like BookTube's pub. And I remember when I did my 1,000 subscriber live stream, and I just sort of randomly invited like 30 different booktubers, and I don't know, 10 turned up, and it was kind of chaotic, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And I've been thinking I want to do these Sunday afternoon sprints or live streams and just send out some invitations and see who joins. And because it really does feel a bit like a pub when you get a few people in and chatting and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm excited you're back. I wasn't able to join your kind of like welcome back extravaganza. So I was glad that I was able
I wasn't either.
to jump on today.
Yeah, it's good to see you. It's good to see everybody. I mean, that's I've said it before. That's one of the main things that kept making me think, I'm definitely not giving up. You know, I'm having a break for an unspecified period of time, but I will be back because I just missed people. It's such a nice community. The people who hang around my channel regularly, and all of you booktubers, and the whole community. It's just so nice group of people. Such a nice group of people. Like Madison. Hello,
Hey,
Madison.
Madison.
We have a chat next weekend.
Nice.
On, I think that one's also on Sunday. We're continuing our Realm of the Elderlings chattings with Madison, Derry, and Evie.
Fun.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, Robert, I don't think I've met you on a stream or anything before. Hi.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. It's like we've commented back and forth. I've seen you and other things, but this is the first time we've actually like pseudo internet met.
Yeah. The face to face in person meeting of BookTube.
BillTube says
Brian.
I don't know if I really know Brian yet, but glad you're back. Glad you encouraged me to read Book of the New Sun. I am such an idiot. Yesterday, I was meant to be recording a chat about the last book of the New Sun, Citadel of the Autarch, with Philip and Jared and Paul Williams, the guy that we've been doing those chats with. And I, like at 5, I thought, oh man, I'm really tired. I'm just going to lay down and take a nap. And we were meant to record at 8 my time. And I set an alarm for 7:30, and I woke up at 9:30. And it wasn't a drama for them. They went on and did it without me, as they should. But I, for me, was really irritated with myself. So stupid. Anyway.
Well, apparently you really needed that nap.
Yeah, I did. I've gotten I'm kind of off work right now for a bit. And I've kind of gotten in a bad habit of sleeping late and staying up late, which works, I mean, as long as you're sleeping late and getting up late, or going to bed late and getting up late, it works. But in the afternoons, I'm often tired. Yeah, Jim, power nap. It was, well, it just guaranteed that I would go to bed late again. Basically. Yeah, slept way too much. What are you reading, Robert?
I'm reading The Spy Who Came In from the Cold.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I've been kind of on like a anything but fantasy kick lately. I just have not been. I have not been in the fantasy mood.
All right. Have you read any other Le Carré?
No, this is my first one. It's been on my list for forever.
I think I read Tinker Tailor, etc. Like decades ago. And remember, it was good. I mean, like if you're into the spy thing, it's pretty cool stuff.
I'm not too far into it. Maybe like a third. And I mean, it's really good. The writing is excellent, and I love what he's doing with this story. I read earlier this year. I read Titanium Noir by Nick Harkaway, and it's it's like my favorite book of the year. But I found out that he's John le Carre's son. And so I was like, oh, okay. Well, let's jump in on that. So it inspired me to go in that direction.
Matt says the end to that is great.
Nice.
And Rogue needs to read more. Yeah, I haven't. I think I also read a Fletcher Bond story novel. I think it was Casino Royale, like a million years ago. But somehow I didn't get hooked on spy fiction.
I read. I mean, this is pretty different than like the Bond type of spy.
Yeah, of course.
Bond's
a semi-superhero.
Yeah. This is a little more like literary than what you get with the Bond stuff. I read Dr. No. That's the only Bond one that I read, and it was fun, but it was also just like, you breeze through that in like an afternoon, and it's
pulp,
and it's not much. But this is really good.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool. I just I'm reading Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Nice.
Mentioned it earlier, and I keep running into bits. I was saying to Tori and everybody earlier, it's poetic, like all the way through, but it's not poetic in the way that you would think it's like complicated writing or anything like that. It's just about every second sentence is suggestive of something that it's not directly saying. Like if you read a poem and you go through it slowly and think about it, it's evoking a lot more than it's directly telling. And, oh man, it's just over and over again. There are bits like I don't highlight that much generally, but in this I've been highlighting every couple of pages. I'm going to read something. It's basically directly about two teenage boys who were born a day apart, but they're next door neighbors. And one of them's set up very clearly at the beginning, and one of them's bad, kind of, and one of them's good, kind of. And one of them is the good one is thinking about his dad. He said, and the odd thing in Dad's voice was the sound truth makes being said. The sound of truth in a wild, roving land of city or plain country lies will spell any boy. Many nights Will drowsed this way, his senses like stopped clocks long before that half-singing voice was still. Dad's voice was a midnight school teaching deep fathom hours, and the subject was life. I'm just like, whoa, okay, I'm going to have to read that one again just to think about it for a bit. Wow.
Yeah.
Bradbury's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, Bradbury's... Trying to think, I've read something else by him. Dandelion Wine is by him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I read that years ago.
Yeah. I love The Martian Chronicles. That's my go-to Bradbury.
Okay. I do not think I've ever read that one.
It's like
my husband is a big Bradbury fan.
It's like a loosely, they're not even really connected. They all take place on Mars. It's just a bunch of short stories.
Yeah.
And if you kind of like put them all together, in some ways you could kind of make a narrative of like maybe some are in the past and some are in the future. But it's really just he had a bunch of short stories that were about Mars and put them together. Yeah, and it's really good.
I got a bunch of shorter stories. I wouldn't call them all short stories, but I just got this: the complete works of H.P. Lovecraft in this nice edition. This is what I think of as a cheap special edition. It's not Folio Society or anything like that, but it does have debossed type and some shiny stuff and a bookmark ribbon and papers and stuff like that. But it's not, and I mean, it was like 22 euros, which is what a normal hardcover costs. And even though H.P. Lovecraft was a raging racist asshole, he wrote some really cool stuff, really interesting stuff. So I wanted to catch up on. And it's also a good thing to sort of like dip in and out of. The stories are pretty short. So you can read one in a weekend and then go on back to the meaty books that I usually read.
The 900-page, 1,000-page Malazan books.
Yeah.
Next one on my list is Reaper's Gale, and I think it's like 950. And I keep looking at it going, it's about as thick as my head. Not quite. But it is actually thicker than my spindly little computer person arms. It's thicker than those, so damn.
I am hoping to. The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman is one of my favorite short stories ever.
Okay.
And I'm hoping to start reading. This is a big collection of all of her short stories. So I'm hoping to dip into that. That'll probably be my next short story collection.
Liam and Michael K. Vaughan are kind of my favorite booktubers that mostly talk about older books, which is funny because Liam looks like he's like a quarter of my age. Michael K. Vaughan looks like he's around my age maybe, but Liam does a really good job on older books and bringing things.
Yeah, he carries the torch very well. He's always got excellent recommendations. Anytime he drops something, I'm like, okay, what is this? How can I even find a copy of this book? I've got to try and read it somehow.
Yeah, exactly. And Michael K. Vaughan isn't here, but Liam is. So I'll ask him, Liam, I've got this theoretically complete H.P. Lovecraft now. And I've read, I don't know, years ago, I read The Call of Cthulhu. Oddly enough, because it was the name of a role-playing game, there is a role-playing game about the Cthulhu mythos called The Call of Cthulhu, which is the name taken from a H.P. Lovecraft story. Other than The Call of Cthulhu, where would you recommend starting with Lovecraft now that I have essentially everything in one volume? Shadow over Innsmouth and The Color Out of Space. Cavalier says those are good. I've heard that. I've heard The Color Out of Space is very trippy, weird and trippy. Jim is reading some dense non-fiction. Fugitive Telemetry. I've heard of Martha Wells, but I haven't heard of Fugitive Telemetry. It's a cool title.
It's one of the Murderbot books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
To be honest, the whole Murderbot thing, I haven't read any of them, so I can't say. But everything I've heard about it, I'm just like, nah.
I read the first one, and it's awesome. It's right it's right up my alley. I really like it.
All right.
It's got enough kind of like detective fiction feel to it that I really dig that. The narrative voice of it is awesome. So if you like stuff that has a really strong narrative voice, Murderbot is good.
Yeah. Okay. Liam says The Color Out of Space is his favorite. Dagon is an early era one. So is The Temple. Dunwich Horror is pretty weird fun. Yeah, it's so funny for me because I've played the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game with the guy who created it, Sandy Peterson. I have played video games that were set in the Cthulhu mythos world and had to do with that. I've played board games and card games that are based on it, like the Arkham Horror stuff. And I've only read one Lovecraft story ever, and it was like decades ago. So I kind of have a feeling for like the whole mythos thing, the Lovecraft thing, but I don't know it directly from actually reading the book. So I thought it was about time. Also, the same with this. I've had this in my head, in my list, my head TBR, for 40 years at least. I've just been aware of it and just over and over again not picked it up. Story Call of Cthulhu is good too. Demarcation, where his stories become much more cosmic and less supernatural. Yeah. Call of Cthulhu was like, I remember it being kind of boring, but with this strange building background tension the whole time. And then at the end, it blows your mind. At the very end of the story, it like some shit turns up where you're like, what? Okay. Yeah. Really, really interesting. I mean, it's a real pity that he was apparently in life such an asshole. So you always have to, I feel like I kind of have to talk about him with a disclaimer. But his stories were really, really interesting, especially considering that they're so old, that they've been around for so long, and they're like cosmic horror didn't really exist until Lovecraft. Yeah. And was that his real name? I mean, doesn't that seem like too perfect a name for some weird author? Like Lovecraft? I don't know. I think it was though. I'm not sure, but I think it was. Call of Cthulhu is detached, but a great example of his terminal climax that is affirming rather than revelatory. Yeah. So what are you reading, Tori? You dodged that question earlier because you weren't reading during the sprint.
I have started like 6 books in the last week, I think. The one that I'm hoping to get through more of today is A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf.
Right. You did say
and
you started
then
that. Yeah.
I'm hoping in the next like day or two to start the third Last War.
Okay.
It's massive.
It's also chunky. Yeah.
It is. But I'm hoping, because I have a bunch of also series that I need to finish, and in November I'm hoping to finish Long Price Quartet, Last War, and Green Bone Saga all in November. So
nice.
Yeah, hoping they all stick the landing.
Earlier this year, I started LPQ with Joanna.
Mm-hmm.
We were buddy reading it, and after the first one, which I really liked, I just didn't continue. I got distracted. I don't know what it was, but I just didn't continue, and she went on with it. So I've still got 3 of those to read.
They're very good.
I didn't, and I won't finish Greenbone Saga.
So sad.
Yeah,
Did you just read the first one, or how far did you get?
I read the first one and I liked it.
Okay.
Yeah, I read the first one and I thought, this is pretty cool. This is a good setup. This is interesting where it's going. And then I read, what's the second one called?
Jade War.
Jade Talk a Lot.
I mean, I won't argue with you.
I was just, I really tried. I got through 75% of it. And I was just, after a while, I just had to admit that I was bored.
Yeah. The middle is a lot.
I wasn't that into it. And I got to the point where I was talking to Kyle about this, and he said, you read Robin Hobb. The problem wasn't that people were talking a lot. Right? Because I could read 200 pages of Hobb characters talking and I have no problem with it at all. It was, I don't know. I just felt pretty detached.
I was going to use that word. It's almost like a clinical, like, here's all of the, here's the characters in book 1, and then book 2, it's just like, there's a lot more of here's the business end of things. And I
think the problem I had with the talkie was they were talking about things mostly that I didn't really care that much about. Right? Like, they weren't talking about things that I was already invested in. They were bringing new things, but they were only being brought into the story through conversations people had that were quite abstract about something happening somewhere else with people we don't know, kind of. And I was like, I just don't care. You know, I was bored. I couldn't finish it. And I've got the third one on my shelf, and I don't think I'll get to it. Hello, Dan. Dan is watching his football.
I've heard a lot of people say that if they didn't love Jade War, because I know I was talking to Cassidy about that, and she was saying that she really had a hard time with Jade War, but Jade Legacy she absolutely loved. So I'm hoping that is a stuck landing for me, because I still enjoyed the character moments in book 2 when I got them. But I like when the author knows a lot about their world. I love that. Yeah. But I don't need that much information.
Yeah, it felt a bit like two textbooks, one on politics and one on economics. And it's like, I didn't study those in university for a reason. I'm not that interested. So having them explained in complicated detail to me in a fantasy book is also like, it's not so much my thing.
Yeah, I think the strength of Greenbone for me thus far is definitely the family dynamics. I'm really enjoying that side of it a lot. Yeah, totally.
But a lot of the family dynamics in Jade War felt very far away.
Yes,
because all of them were doing things kind of on their own mostly.
Yep.
And then every now and then it'd come together. There'd be a bit of an action scene, and then we'd go back to like politics and import export and stuff. You know, I was like, yeah.
Man, I really kind of like to see you read Jade Legacy, because Jade Legacy, there's so much stuff that happens. It's like,
but does it happen, or do people?
It does. Yeah, there's a lot that happens. It packs a lot into that book, and the character stuff is awesome. Although Dan said Legacy was his least favorite. But
I've heard that from a couple people.
The reason that people, this isn't a spoiler for Legacy, I think the reason people don't like it as much is because there are like time jumps within it. And so like in the first 2 books, they cover a pretty like contained amount of time, and they cover it in like great detail. And with Legacy, it really is this like expansive look at the world, and you kind of, it covers a much, it covers decades basically.
Yeah.
And so for some people that just like, that didn't work for them. And for me, I found that to be a very refreshing ending to a fantasy trilogy, where they like made a lot of stuff happen, closed a lot of threads, explored new things without having to be like a 10-book series. I thought
I'm a huge fan
of a masterful way of ending.
I'm a huge fan of A Canticle for Leibowitz, and that has like 100-year time jumps.
Yeah.
And all the way through it, like it's 4 or 5 different, I think, jumps. It's been a while since I read it, but awesome book, and it jumps through time in a massive way. I have no problem with that, especially if it works out well as a story, then no problem. Doesn't bother me, but we'll see. Maybe I'll push on and see and give it a couple 100 pages in Legacy. And if someone doesn't get beaten to death in the first couple of 100 pages, then I'll just put it down.
Not to name any names, but
I don't care who. I just want some action.
I do.
Well, yeah. I know who you want to see beaten to death. Yeah.
I think Jade War is such an interesting book because it's called Jade War, and then like you said, there is a lot of the talkie happening in it. But I feel like there's like an intentional tension with the fact that it's called Jade War, and you know that something is coming, and it's kind of like it takes a while to get there. And so for me, I was feeling that tension build up, and then that last quarter or whatever, where everything starts to happen, just feels crazy. And to me, it felt very worth it. But I can see people not liking that book as
there
much.
Was somebody in my Discord, because we're doing a read along for it, and there was somebody in my Discord that made the very astute observation that instead of what you're expecting, which is a war between like the Horns, you get a war between the Weathermen. And I thought that was a good way of looking at it, because it's not a war in the as much of a street fight physical sense. It's more the tactical, economics and the very careful strategic movements of things. Yeah. I just felt like it was
I got that, what you were saying, Robert, that it's build up and it's tension.
Yeah.
And I just, it felt like 85-90% of the book was the build up.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it is.
It is. Yep.
It just exhausted me after a while. It was like, okay, so we're going towards a thing. I get it. Oh, we're still going towards a thing, and the things, and people are talking about the thing a lot. Where's the thing? You know, and yeah, it just kind of turned me off. Should have been called Jade Chats. It was literally, I stopped and I thought, okay, I'm being silly. I stopped and I went back through the book and sort of found every kind of scene backwards from about 3/4 of the way through, went backwards, and literally every scene except 3, I think, was 2 or more people sitting talking about something. That's the whole book. And then there's one explosion and there's one fight. And then there was a sort of a chase-ish scene. And I was like, that's the whole book. It's literally 95% people sitting in a room talking about something somewhere else. And it just, yeah, didn't turn me on too much. Jared's here. Hello, Jared. Yeah, Brian says time skips wrecked it. Yeah, I've heard that a lot as well. Like people either loved it or thought the time skips were a problem. Yeah. Back to Lovecraft. Clark Ashton Smith is Lovecraft on LSD. Wow.
See, there we go. Now it's like, all right, Liam drops another one. We got to go.
Yeah, no, I know the name. I know the name because he sort of floats around Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard, and you know, I think Ashton Smith wrote some Conan stories as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, Liam. And yeah, he was sort of in that whole circle. I don't know if they were actually friends or anything. I've heard of him, but I've never read anything by him. It's weird because I was kind of a late 70s, 80s fantasy sci-fi kid. And I can tell you right now, Brian, actually, yes, Tori does hate Barrow more than Baez.
Yes, that is.
Yeah.
That's oof.
Tori hates Barrow more than everyone.
At this moment, yes, because it's a recency bias, you know.
He doesn't really, I mean, at least in my experience in the first 2 books, he doesn't really get more sympathetic.
No.
He I mean, I kind of liked him right at the beginning. Like in the very first chapter in the first book, I was like, scrappy young guy with no money. He's an underdog. He's trying to take from the big guys. You know, and I thought, yeah, he's kind of cool. I like him.
Well, and I think that's one of, to me, it's why he's worse than Baez. I also absolutely loathe Baez, but Barrow starts as one of my favorite archetype characters to read, like Locke Lamora and, you know, all these kind of scrappy young guys that are like, you know, and then it like just twists it and makes it something really annoying and awful. So that's probably why I hate it more.
Well, and also I think it's easier to like him at the beginning because you don't know the no peaks.
Yeah.
You know, like he's stealing from some sort of nameless, faceless rich people, you know, and then once you know the no peaks and you start actually liking them, even though they're also pretty reprehensible overall, then especially with the burial thing, I won't get into details. That whole thing, I was like, okay, you're beyond the pale now.
I almost threw the book across the room.
I think he's a great character. I like him.
I like him as a character.
I don't like him as a person, but I think he's great for the books.
I think he is a very cool character.
Human.
Yeah. I would not want to hang out with him, but I do like him as a character. So technically, this is Sprinz, which I'm in Germany, so I have to say it that way. Let's Sprinz again until hour 50. You know what I mean? Same as last time, basically.
Cool. I'll read for a little bit and then I'm probably going to bail. So
cool. All right. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I was glad I was get to join for at least a little bit. Sundays are kind of a family day, but I had a little window.
Sure.
So
yeah, cool. Good to see you.
I'll hang out for a bit.
Yep. Hello. Trying to keep it very calm and mellow to not shock people who are reading. Welcome back.
I still jumped.
There's always one.
Yeah, it's me. Hey, Pete.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. How you doing, Matt?
Pretty good. Thanks for joining us, Pete.
No problem. Thanks for the invite. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. I see also Derry's here. Hi, Derry.
Derry. She's enjoying a beautiful day in New Zealand right now.
I'm sure. It's always beautiful in New Zealand. Although it's actually quite rainy. I've been there a bit and it was quite wet when I was there.
Your last one.
And Derry, it wasn't you. Robert was here, but he did already say before you came that he couldn't stay. So
That's pretty cool.
yeah. Everybody reading good? Today is actually glorious, apparently, in New Zealand. I'm glad to hear it, Derry. I sent you a link in during the sprint, Derry. If you would like to join us on screen, you're welcome to. I was saying this earlier. I want to make this a regular thing, and I'm not sure how, but I would basically like to be able to post a link somewhere that anybody who wants to join on screen can join. I actually invited a couple of my comment lurkers, my regulars in the comments on my channel, probably also on your channels, like Jerome and Andrea and Tufty and so on. I posted a link for them and said, hey, if you like being on screen and you're not camera shy, join us, because it shouldn't only be whoops, I should take that banner away. It shouldn't necessarily only be us content creators. You know, the conversation is with everybody.
Yeah, it's always good to get more people on screen that aren't on screen. Then we can eventually push them to being content creators, since it's the thing that happens.
Content creators are overrated, you know?
Yeah,
we are.
we're just as fucked up as anybody in the comments. I mean, like, there's nothing special about us. Definitely.
More so because we
true.
put our faces on the internet to say
Exactly. What kind of egos have we got going? Wiz is back. Dad Life took over. He sent me a really cute photo because I also invited him to join us, and he sent me a photo of hyperactive children and him. Derry's got Hessian fluff everywhere.
I don't know what that is.
I can't imagine what that is either.
She's building a bunny rabbit out of scratch.
I don't know. I think actually my
It's
new
a type
cat-
of sewing, isn't it?
Okay. I think actually my new cat that I will be getting on Thursday could be called Hessian Fluff. It's a Maine Coon.
Nice.
Long
How
hair,
old?
extremely fluffy, 1.5 years. I didn't want a kitten because they're just nuts, and you get basically a year of dealing with a psycho in your house.
It's true.
Yeah, so I wanted a somewhat older cat. It was actually kind of a sad story. The breeder had this new cat, Kitty Mama, who had her first litter, and then the vet found I don't know what it's called in English, actually, basically a tumor on her ovaries.
Aw.
And she's totally fine. They just had to remove the ovaries, which for a breeder is pretty crap. Yeah. So she's like, I love the cat, but all the cats I keep around are for breeding. So I'm going to get rid of this one. And she's super sweet. I mean, the cat and the breeder. The breeder has been sending me photos and videos and all sorts of stuff. She's really, really sweet.
Maine Coons are amazing cats.
Maine Coons are stunning. I mean, I've thought it's kind of like having a cat dog because they're really big. Like, this is a female, so a small one, and in 2 years she'll probably be 6 or 7 or 8 kilos, right? So and like this long without the tail. You know, they're really Cool. Dan was joking that I should call it Day Thighs or
Night Eyes would also be a cute name for.
I like somehow for animals. I always want a 1-syllable name.
That's fair.
So I'm going to name her Fitz, and eventually I'll probably get a white cat and name him the Fool.
Nice.
But call him Fool.
Having a kit, like we talked about earlier, just as a warning, having a kitten with a namesake or a cat with a namesake, just be aware that sometimes they're
You're putting something
the
on
name
them.
the name is predictive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait until Fitz makes a friend.
Yeah.
It's not the Fool.
Yeah.
Ben
Yeah,
and I
we'll
have
see.
talked about when we get our first dog, we want to get a corgi and name it Whiskey Jack.
Oh yeah, that would be a cool name.
Yeah.
For a corgi.
Yeah.
There we go. There's Fitz.
Oh.
I visited her yesterday. She is a she, but I don't think she'll actually mind being called Fitz.
She won't care.
And she was just so gorgeous. And also, like, personality-wise, totally relaxed.
Mhm.
Totally relaxed. Like, no problem with anything. Just really, really chill. So, yeah.
My grandpa had a Maine Coon when I was growing up, and he was the best cat. He's awesome.
Yeah. Fitz will be needy and respond well to affection, and also not say everything that he should have said. Yeah. Why do you want to do that, Tori? That corgi is going to be aggravating.
That's my brand, Andrew. Just fits with the brand.
Yeah, Cavalier. Maine Coons are known for, like, they kind of look like they're closer to the wild roots of cats than most house cats do.
Mhm.
They have tufts on their ears like bobcats do, and they have lots of hair coming out of their ears, and they have lots of whiskers, and very long and sometimes very curly whiskers, actually, which is weird. But anyway.
My parents had a rag doll. Well, I grew up with a rag doll, and grew up, quote unquote, from high school on, had a rag doll. My parents.
I think rag dolls are bred from Maine Coons. I'm pretty sure Maine Coons came first.
Yep.
There are a lot of weird stories about Maine Coons, like how they got to be in America. But the one that seems to be probably true is that there's a breed of cat called a Norwegian forest cat. And it seems like the Vikings maybe actually brought some of those over to America like 1,000 years ago. And they ended up being Maine Coons.
Came down through Maine.
Yeah, exactly. They are strangely enough I didn't realize states had official cats, but the Maine Coon is the official cat of Maine. For
Makes sense.
obvious reasons, I guess. And manes. Yeah, and they have manes, especially when they get older. They've got this big sort of ruff around their shoulders and necks, and they're gorgeous. The Norwegian cats, the Norwegian forest cats, look like that, but even bigger and furrier. Yeah. They're pretty
Minnesota does not have a state cat, and now I'm upset.
It wouldn't surprise me if Maine was the only state in America that had a state
There's
cat.
a couple, but
there's a Maine Coon.
What's funny is that you have there's like 4 or 5 that do, but you've got the normal, like, these are considered the state cat. And then in Massachusetts, of course, you have the tabby cat, which is considered the official cat of the Commonwealth.
Good old Massachusetts.
Right.
Special.
It's been a while since America was part of the Commonwealth, hasn't it?
Well, Massachusetts kind of has its own timeline, apparently.
I mean, isn't that where the Boston Tea Party, like where it all sort of started?
Yeah.
The whole get out
relatively.
Relatively.
I mean, not completely started, but it was a milestone.
It was a big milestone for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, Virginia is still a Commonwealth.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I was born and grew up for much of my life in Virginia. So
Nice.
Yeah, I should know that. I went to university in Richmond.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
My brother and sister-in-law live out there.
The weirdest mix of Southern racism and art students that you'll ever find. It's a really, really odd city because it's very, very cool and hip and funky in some places because of the art school I went to. And it's super old school, conservative, Southern in most places. It's a weird.
Yeah, I don't know how much that has changed. I don't go to Richmond that often.
Yeah, I have no idea. I haven't been to Richmond, I think, since I graduated. So in like 100 years. It's been a while.
Yeah, no, I was in DC for a while after I got out of school, and then
I was born in DC.
Nice.
Yeah.
I do live in Virginia, in a very unspecified part of Virginia that I will not talk about as much because
specify.
I'm not going to specify unless it's privately.
Roughly, like Western, Eastern, Northern, Southern?
Eastern.
Okay. See, I spent a lot of time in Virginia Beach and Newport News. I spent a lot of time in Northern Virginia mostly. I grew up in McLean, Fairfax, Great Falls, all of that stuff up there, and DC. And then I went to university in Richmond and a little bit in Roanoke.
Nice. Yeah, no, my brother's in Roanoke right now.
Right.
Probably shouldn't say that if I'm not going to say where I live, but
I'm going to dox him right now.
Apologies, brother, that might not live there for any longer. He's just going to leave because I said something. But yeah, I used to live in Loudon, and then I worked out of McLean.
Okay. Yeah. I lived in McLean and went to school at Langley, right over the fence from the CIA. Actually,
nice. Yeah, I've been there. Actually, I have a jacket from the CIA.
Oh well, my mother actually worked for the CIA.
Nice. What did she do?
She was an analyst. She didn't do any.
Analysts have the fun jobs. Let's be honest. In my opinion,
I mean, it's basically an office job looking at documents. I mean, she had top secret clearance, which that's cool.
I was gonna say, Pete's like, let me at it.
I'm an accountant, all right. Like this type of deal. If I can stomach looking through hundreds upon hundreds of leases while I was up in DC, I can deal with just random documents from other places.
Oh man. If I was going to have anything to do with it, I was kind of waiting all my life for them to approach me because they tend to at least try out recruiting that way. And that never happened. I actually lived with a guy when I was in university. There were some guys that knocked on the door and they said, "Hi, we're from the CIA." And I was like, "Are you here because of my mother?" And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Okay, are you here for me?" And they're like, "What?" I was like, "Why are you here?" And they said, "We're here. Is Roger here?" I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, my roommate." And they were recruiting him.
And
it was really interesting, actually. They sat me and my other roommate down and said, "Tell us about Roger." And they were like asking questions and stuff. And they were like, "Please be honest, completely honest. You can't get him in trouble for anything you say."
Yeah.
The reason we're asking these questions, whether he uses drugs or has ever visited prostitutes or anything like that, is to know what could be used against him in the future. If we hire him, we have to know, honestly, who he really is. It was really, really interesting to talk to them. Yeah, that's right. Jack Ryan started as an analyst.
Jack Ryan's true to life, of course.
Totally ridiculous things about the whole Jack Ryan stories is like they keep calling him an analyst. I'm like, he's leading troops into an operation. Like, that's not analysts.
He's no longer an analyst.
He hasn't been an analyst since the beginning. Yeah.
It's the tagline.
Yeah, exactly. It's a nice idea that he's basically a superhuman smart, superhuman military tactician, superhuman everything. That's
of course.
The thing.
Yeah, we love superhuman people that are true to life, also not true to life.
My mother actually was a proper analyst, and it was a secret I kept for 14 years. She told me, or actually longer, 18 years. She told me when I was 10 just because when you work for the CIA and you're undercover in another country, which we were, there are things that don't line up, you know, if you're around full time. So she told me when we moved to Australia that she worked for the CIA, but told me I couldn't tell anyone because it could be dangerous for her. So I didn't mention it to anyone ever until she died when I was 28.
You were 10 and she told you this and you didn't tell anyone.
I did not tell anyone.
That is impressive.
I mean, she made it clear that like word gets out and it gets around. Even if you talk to whoever, it could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then that could be bad for
I got to jump off, guys.
All right.
I'm going to go to prayer group, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your sprint.
Pray good.
Sounds
See you,
good.
Tori.
See you guys later.
Enjoy. Ciao.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
Did you ever bring any? I remember one of the things that I've heard mentioned before is like the people between the CIA and the NSA, they would wear each other's merch since they both have gift shops. Or throw people off since they actually can't wear their own agency's merch pretty much.
Right. I do not remember my mother ever wearing a CIA jacket or something. I don't think she even owned anything like that. I certainly never saw it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was kind of weird. So what are you reading now, Pete?
I'm reading
Wait
something.
a sec. I just noticed in your background, you have Spirit Island.
I do. I love that
game. Yeah.
It's a fantastic game. I need to break it out and play a few more games.
Yeah.
At
I've
some
only
point.
played it once or twice. Since
I have played. I have a spreadsheet somewhere of like 60 or 70 times.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I have a very specific goal in mind, but that's like, it's complicated. So I play two-handed, so I play with two spirits at once on my own because I enjoy that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm a masochist or something. But yeah, it's fun. I enjoy the puzzle challenge type vibe.
Yeah. Yeah, we played when I bought it and then I had some friends over and we played it a couple of times. That's it. So it's just been very, very introductory. And I think we played kind of the easy beginner mode as well. And I noticed it's too easy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely too easy. We cleaned the board pretty quickly. So, no, I definitely need to try it with slightly more complicated spirits and
add in the adversaries.
Challenge.
The complicated spirits can get really fun. Like there's one that like you attack and you actually lose presence.
Oh, wow.
Like its offense is actually negative.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which is probably one of the most interesting experience. Really annoying to play though. For me, because that specific Finder of Paths Unseen, it's like a hummingbird. It's from one of the expansions, but this spirit is like, hi, you can move things from one side of the board to the other side of the board.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, really good playing with other things.
All right.
But on its own, it's tricky. Anyways.
Jerry says at least she never brought work home. Actually, there's a funny story, which I think I've told on a live chat before. It sounds like I'm making all of this up. I've told this story a number of times, and people are always like, that's not true. So my mother and I moved to Australia. We moved to Canberra. She was in the American Embassy. She had an official position there, and then she was one of the two CIA people in the embassy. And then the U.S. Marines used to have parties.
Ooh.
And at one of these parties, she met the second director of the Australian FBI and married him. And so my mother and my stepfather were in the CIA and the Australian FBI, the AFP. And then he got posted to the Australian embassy in Washington, D.C., where we were from, so that my mother could be near her family, or my mother and I. So when we got there, he was the liaison for law enforcement, the Australian liaison to American law enforcement. And we had a dinner at our house once. The second head of the actual FBI was there. A guy from the CIA who nobody really talked about exactly who he was, but he was like level of second head of the CIA. The director of the U.S. Marshals, all of these guys turned up at our house, like with big dudes in black suits and speaking into their sleeves and all of that kind of stuff. And my stepbrother and I were in the kitchen. We were like serving dinner. And my stepbrother and I were in the kitchen. And I was like, we don't know the right people to make money off of this, do we? Like, we could make so much money if we just poisoned the food and didn't care about our parents dying. This would be a perfect opportunity. But yeah, so we had these really weird dinners at our place occasionally. It was very strange. Very, very strange.
I mean, the real question, so head of the U.S. Marshal. What year was this?
Oh, this was back in 94, 5, I think.
Okay,
Something like that.
So 2001 was a while away.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder why the CIA never recruited me. Actually, I know why the CIA never recruited me, because I belonged to a peace club in high school. I was way too liberally minded, I think, for them.
What type of peace club?
I was really only in it because my girlfriend was, to be totally honest. But it was we were protesting various things at different times and organizing, write-ins to various government officials in America and that kind of stuff, all towards like demilitarization, getting rid of atomic weapons, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, but like I said, I was mostly in it because my girlfriend was.
And then she ruined your chance to get in the CIA.
Exactly. She ruined my future career in the CIA. No, I'm so not the kind of guy they would want, I think. I don't believe in any country enough to want to do the kinds of things that they have to do.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah. I do believe that they do not only evil things, I think they do a lot of ugly things with a larger goal. But I think it just the morality of what they do gets so messy.
It's easy to lose sight of what really matters in that sort of job.
Exactly. And I like having a job where I don't have to make those kind of decisions.
Yeah. You like a job where you don't have to work with a bunch of sociopaths.
Well, and where nobody dies no matter what kind of decision I make.
True. True that. I remember people getting stressed in accounting, and one of the things in audit that we would say is like, guys, if we get things wrong, no one's going to die. It's fine. No one dies because of numbers getting wrong. In this case,
I design software, and no matter how bad I design it, the chance of anyone dying is very slim. Although I did have one project where we did a whole bunch of Post-its at the beginning of the project, and it was risks to users, risks to us as a company, risks to whatever. And we're just brainstorming, throwing out all these Post-its, and I was facilitating. And then I was like, okay, we need to sort these from like worst possible risk to not a big deal. And at the end, I was like, that's interesting. In sorting risks, this is the first project I've ever had where death was the highest one. And it was a software that could stimulate something implanted in someone's head, a cochlear implant, which allows deaf people to hear.
Yeah.
And if a cochlear implant recipient is old or has a weak heart, and you stimulate them unexpectedly at too high a level, they could die.
True.
So yeah, that was interesting design. Working on something that you need to make sure you're not going to kill someone with it. Living in murky dealings makes clarity difficult. Yeah. I love watching the spy movies and stuff, but I do not want to have to make those kind of decisions myself. We're back at maybe Sprintsy sort of time. I
Sure.
think. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm down.
Shall we
I have
do
a book
another
to
one?
finish tonight.
All right. I'm charging along actually in something wicked this week.
Ah, yes. It's my favorite Bradbury book.
Yeah, I'm about a third of the way through, and I just started this morning. It's a very easy read.
Oh yeah.
But I do have to keep stopping because the prose is so poetic.
Mhm.
Not that it's difficult, but so many of his sentences mean more than just what's there.
Yeah.
You know, they're very suggestive and evocative, and I have to keep going, oh, wait a sec. That was an
Yep.
interesting sentence. Go back and read it again. Man, it's good. It's really good so far. It's been on my list forever, but finally got to it for spooky season, and it is spooky.
Great. Yeah,
Definitely.
very much so. It's classically spooky.
Yeah. So let's say until quarter 2.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
put
fine.
up a banner. Wait a sec. All right. Go. Read. Hello. I hope that didn't shock anyone.
Not me.
Yeah. You're a tough guy.
Nah, I just didn't have any electrical outlets, Neil.
What are you reading?
I'm reading the book that is totally not a 50 Shades of Grey ripoff, Devices and Desires.
KJ Parker wrote a 50 Shades of Grey ripoff?
No, it's not that. It's called the Engineer Trilogy. It just looks like it because there's the word desires in the name, and it's that weird gray cover.
Gray and with a lock on the cover. It could
it looks like it could be fantasy medieval BDSM, but it's totally about just nerdy engineers and creating a war.
Fantasy medieval BDSM.
Definitely not that.
Somebody should write that.
No, I will not.
No, I'm not saying you
somebody
should,
probably has.
Yeah, that's true. That's not a corner of fantasy that I would know anything about. So
exactly.
let
me emphasize, this is not 50 Shades of Grey in any sense of the term. It is about a dude who is exiled from his country and he engineers a war to get back with his wife. It's what KJ Parker calls a love story. I will see how it goes.
From what I've heard, I haven't read any Parker yet, but from what I've heard about KJ Parker, I would mistrust anything he calls a love story.
I do mistrust it, but he keeps saying it, and I'm like, interesting. And like on top of that, Parker's main characters tend to be slightly sociopathic sometimes.
That's what I mean. That's like why I would mistrust it.
And this isn't like The Company where the guy is legitimately a sociopath, but the main character is an engineer, and he is very much an engineer's engineer. He enjoys systems and making things, and it's great.
Okay. So that's the kind of thing you're into as an accountant.
Of course. Yeah, systems. Accounting is all about systems.
Design is very often also all about systems. So I try to be a very practical designer. You don't need a system for everything. And like design projects only after a certain size really need a clear system.
I mean, it depends on how much you trust the people that are using the system.
Yeah, and that's that's the thing. I prefer to work on small projects with people I trust.
Yeah,
like a small team. Get the team together really close. Get them collaborating properly. Get the culture down that everyone's working in a sensible way. And then if the project's not too big, you don't need a system.
Yeah,
because it just becomes common sense.
People do things.
People you're working with. But yeah. So what I want to ask in the I think for me, since it's 10:45 here, that's the last sprint. But before we sign off, I want to ask everybody in the comments, which isn't that many people anymore. It's been sort of steadily decreasing as we've gone along. What are you reading and how is it? I am reading Something Wicked This Way Comes, and it is fucking awesome. It's very nostalgic. It's like two boys who are 13 years old in feels like the 50s.
Sort of. I think at the beginning they say exactly what year it is when they talk about the newspaper.
That's true. There was a newspaper right at the beginning. I don't remember. It says
it's a little bit after
October 24th anyway, but I don't know about the exact year. But it feels like the 50s, and a carnival comes to town at 3 a.m. on a ghostly train, and really weird, spooky shit happens. Yeah, I won't go into any more detail, but I'm about halfway through, and it's really weird. It's really weird and really well written. Really like it. It's got. I'm the same as Mike. I've got a real thing for coming of age stories, specifically boy coming of age stories, because I was a boy once who came of age, so I can relate to it. And this is definitely a two boys coming of age kind of story, and it's really twisted and freaky and also very wholesome in some ways, like a lot of really
the
old
dad.
values, wholesome. Well, the dad, I mean, that's all sad actually. The dad doesn't feel wholesome.
Yes.
He's basically absent, but I'm expecting that to sort of turn around because Will's the good kid. And Will's dad, I get the feeling that Will's dad is basically good. He's just confused and lost, kind of like Stoner. Have you read Stoner?
I have not. I need to, though. I've read Augustus, but I haven't read anything else by John Williams yet.
Will's dad in Something Wicked has Stoner energy.
Oh, okay. I think I mean, that's just another like notch of why I'll probably love Stoner.
Stoner is, I mean, so far in at least our little corner of BookTube, I don't know anyone that's tried to read Stoner and didn't like it. Like I know some people who just like, oh my God, totally loved it. Like me and Joanna and Alan and, and Rogue apparently, and Jared apparently as well. It's really good. And it's weird because like if you summarize the book, if someone summarized it at me, I would be like, fuck no, I'm not going to read that. It sounds boring as shit.
Yeah,
a university professor who doesn't know what to do with his life.
Yeah. At the same time, I find myself reading things that 5 years ago I probably would have been like, why the heck are you reading? That sounds boring as all get out. Like reading about a random economic paper about Israel and Palestine back before Israel was founded, like in the 30s. Like, okay, you're reading about the labor, the basically the socialist movement in Palestine. I feel like that would be boring to pass me, but now I'm just like, oh, this is so interesting, and I see all the threads, and this is
That specific one would probably still come under the category boring for me, but I know what you mean.
Yeah,
there are things. I read a lot of stuff about technology because I kind of work in the field, and I read a lot of stuff about AI specifically.
Yeah,
and I can imagine like me 10 years ago would have thought that is pretty boring, like reading about tech and science and all that sort of stuff. But I totally love it. So
the potential of it.
Dan is starting Something Wicked this week. Just finished Red Rising. I still need to get to Red Rising, that whole series.
Beautiful series.
Yeah, no,
I still haven't finished Lightbringer. I haven't started Lightbringer. I got it, and then I just got overwhelmed with other things.
I have a video coming out tomorrow, which is basically, it's basically me going, okay, I'm back on BookTube. What am I going to read? And then part of it is a tour of my bookshelf and me pointing out all of the series I've started but not finished. And there are quite a few.
Yeah.
And I was talking about it earlier before you joined. I was sitting there this morning having my coffee, staring at my bookshelf, which is right there, and going, I should continue with that maybe, or I should and I just couldn't make myself want to do one more than anything else. And then I was
You're
like,
just not excited to read them all, or
no, I think I'm excited to read all of them, but sort of equally.
Okay.
So it's just hard to choose. It's like
this
any
is where
of them
buddy
would be
reads
fine.
really come in handy.
Yeah.
I find that for me, I've had a lot of books that I've wanted to read, but buddy reads have served as a good motivation just to be like, you know what, I can discuss this with somebody and I can actually like get even more enjoyment around it. Like, I don't think I would have read all of Hobb the way I have if I didn't have like Derry and Anitha and Evie and all these other people that were reading along with me. I'd just be like, hey, yeah, let's sit down and have a discussion after every single book. And that's been such a wonderful thing. I'm just like, yes.
Yeah, I realized with so much time away that the thing I really missed from being on BookTube was not so much the reading and talking about books myself, but it was then discussing a book or a series with everybody else. And I want to do a lot more of that. I want to do these sort of everyone's invited streams on Sundays kind of regularly. I've got an idea that I want to do a vlog of me
Resources.
rereading Lord of the Rings
Nice.
for the like 20 something time. As an old guy who read it when I was 9 the first time, and then after each book, I want to do a discussion with Philip, AP, and Mike.
Nice.
And I think AP hasn't replied yet, but Mike and Philip said they're up for it as long as we can find scheduling. Rogue says God is Not Willing is picking up. Not in love with the new Malazan Marines yet. Yeah. But I'm assuming that means, Rogue, that you were in love with the old Malazan Marines,
which is a good sign that you're a person of quality.
Yeah, I mean, like a person that deserves to not be kicked out of my comments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jared says Fugitive Prince by Jenny Wirtz, outstanding. It's interesting. I'd never read any Jenny Wirtz, and I picked up kind of just before my channel went on hiatus. I picked up To Ride Hell's Chasm, and I found it a weird mix between the first half, which was actually pretty engrossing with awesome characters and really interesting interactions and stuff, and then the second half where it felt like it was one scene repeated over and over again.
Really interesting.
Yeah, it's like the beginning is sort of setting up a whole bunch of stuff, and then the in the middle, sort of a bit past the middle, they ride Hell's Chasm. It's in the title, and
Who would have thought?
Yeah, exactly. Not false advertising, Miss Wirtz. And they flee down this chasm, and they're being chased, and it's all, meant to be building up tension. But it basically felt like they ride into a bad situation. There's a fight where they have to do something smart to kind of get out of it. And then they're riding down this chasm, and then there's a fight where they have to do something smart to kind of get out of it. And then they're riding down this chasm, and it was just, I don't know. I was like, The last bit of it just didn't grab me so much. Anyway. The Rogue recently reread the original trilogy. Books 1 and 2 improved and 3 didn't. I'm interested. I assume you're talking about Lord of the Rings. I'm really interested myself because I've read it so many times. I know the book so well, and I haven't read it in a decade, maybe. And I'm definitely of the generation where I was like skeptical of the movies. Like I'd read the book so many times, I was like, they're making a movie out of it. I don't know. I like the movies. I thought the movies were very well done. But I thought it'd be interesting to reread it and see, especially now that because of BookTube, I think a bit more consciously about style and prose and, prose style, I mean, and how it's structured and all that kind of stuff, What
you should do is watch the Russian version and see how much you can understand.
I mean, I don't know how much of the words I would understand, but I know what's going on.
No, just do the imagery. The imagery is quite
in my sleep. I know what's going on in Lord of the Rings,
but the Russian version.
Oh, you mean
the bootleg Russian version that was filmed many, many moons ago that was recently uploaded to the internet?
I don't know anything about that.
I'll have to see if I can find a link and send it to you. It is a trip.
Okay. I mean, I'm of the generation where Lord of the Rings in moving pictures was the Bakshi animated.
Yeah. I've seen those actually. My grandparents had them, and I watched when I was younger.
Yeah, they're not great.
they're terrifying.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Smeagol is like,
there are some good bits in them, but they're like way off the books, and they're really.
I mean, to be fair, the description of Smeagol is actually like almost pretty accurate with the headlamp eyes and everything.
Oh yeah, Smeagol's a scary fucker.
Yeah.
Yeah. No question. I thought Gollum in the movies was almost too sympathetic. Like
one of those tiny changes.
Yeah, I mean, he was really well done. I especially liked
Mhm.
the Smeagol Gollum
Yeah.
discussions with himself. I thought that was amazingly well done, and Andy Serkis was just
Oh
genius. I
yeah.
mean, it's like so good. But he was a lot more, yeah, he was a lot more likable than I think he is in the books.
Yeah. It's one of the things they changed that worked out very well for them based
Yeah.
on the audience they were going for and some other things.
Well, and it's also, honestly, it's one of the tensions of the
Mhm.
whole quest is like Sam hates him and Frodo pities him,
Mhm.
you know? And so it's like Frodo giving him a chance and Sam would rather smash his head with a rock. And it just sort of goes back and forth all the time. And sometimes he is he's playing very nice. And sometimes
Mhm.
he's being kind of evil
Yeah.
and, you know,
They just reflected that more obviously within the character.
yeah. And I mean, Gandalf gives the little speech about judgment and, you know, if you can't give someone life, then you should hesitate to take it away. That kind of thing. I forget exactly the words of it, but
I don't
yeah.
recall the speech at all. I probably would if I saw
Yeah.
it, but
I mean, Gandalf basically says to Frodo, like,
is it the speech in the Mines of Moria?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
When they stop and they're not sure which way to go, and then they're having a chat.
Yeah.
And yeah, and Gandalf is basically like, yeah, you really should think hard about it before you kill Gollum.
Yeah.
He's reprehensible, but he's actually pitiful. He's not
Very much foreshadowing.
you know. Yeah, exactly. Lord of the Rings community always makes a big deal of Bilbo and Frodo's birthday with themed talks and events. I don't even know when that is. I mean, I know it was his what birthday it was, but I don't know when it is. I don't remember.
You haven't read the appendices enough.
No, I mean, and that's the thing. I was always really into the story, but I never really got into the nerdery. Like,
I think I've read the appendices at least once.
Yeah, I've read the appendices more than once, but I don't speak Quenya. You know, I mean, like I haven't gotten that deep into Middle-earth.
I had a account now. I don't know what type of professor. He had data analytics professor in college who him and his wife spoke Quenya, and they would like leave notes all around for each other and stuff like that. And like if they had to leave a note on the door, they would just leave it there written in that, and they wouldn't have to like.
I think it's super cool. Like I don't look down on that kind of nerdery at all.
Oh, of course not. It's awesome. I was like in college.
I think it's amazing. You know, I think that's really, really cool. I've just never gone there myself. I've always been just into the stories and never really delved. Emily DNF'd at Tom Bombadil.
Knowing her, I understand.
I don't really know Emily. Tom Bombadil is he's controversial.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't, in a way, he doesn't really play any role in the story. You know, so I totally understand why Peter Jackson took him out. But he's also the spirit of the entire world, basically. You know, like he's not an unimportant character in the world. He's just not that relevant directly to the story. And I think our modern day cynicism makes it really hard to just swallow Tom Bombadil as he was intended, because he's just good and light and positive, and you know it all seems a little bit cheesy or fake or whatever for us. I guess that's what put Emily off. I don't know. Rogue meant Red Rising.
Reading the
original trilogy. Yeah. I still want to get to that. Tori is such a Red Rising head, and she's such a good friend. I am very curious. Hello, Safina. You've come sort of towards the end. We're just summarizing what we're reading and how good it is. That, and I had seen the movies and couldn't get over how long it took them to leave the Shire in the books. Yeah. I mean, structurally, he spends a fair bit of time showing you how good the world is before he shows you that it's falling apart and that evil wants to destroy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
It's got to show you how British everything is before we go into the not British stuff.
yeah, before the World War starts.
Yeah, before the World War One trauma kicks in, we have to show you the British.
Yeah. And it I don't know. I always liked that because the hobbits are, in a way, they're normal. You know, like I always saw the hobbits as being basically us.
Yeah.
Because men in Middle Earth are not us, and elves are definitely not us. And, you know,
I mean, they were meant to represent the typical, like the ideal English life, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Which
they are very twee.
Yeah.
You know, very twee British small town village life.
I always remember a story. It's either Tolkien or Christopher or C.S. Lewis. I'm not sure which, but they got really mad because there was a road that went around like a tree that they loved to sit under and like read. And one day that tree was cut down so the road could go straight. And they hated that with a burning passion. Which
I can totally understand.
Like, why did the road have to go straight? Why couldn't you just continue to have the road go around it like it always had? Why did you have to cut down the tree?
Why would you cut down a tree to actually go to the effort of making a road straight? I mean,
exactly.
People can drive slow. What's wrong with that? It's actually interesting. I was speaking of like things you would have thought were boring 10 years ago. I have played a lot of City Skylines, which is like a city builder game.
Yeah.
And through that, I progressively got off on all sorts of tangents and down rabbit holes about city planning and urban planning and like comparisons. There's a guy on YouTube who does these amazing comparisons between like Holland, Netherlands, and the US and how city planning is done. And another guy does a lot about England. And in England, they consciously make roads unstraight. So they'll make certain roads windy just because that makes people drive slower. Right?
Smart.
Like it's a super smart way to make people drive slower instead of putting bumps, which people either speed over and that's horrible, or you really have to stop almost, you know. But if you've got a curvy road, you will automatically unconsciously go slower because you can't see very far.
Yeah.
So they will, like when you've got a big arterial road going between two villages, they won't just make it big straight road, which of course in America they always would. But in England, they'll curve it a bit and make sure there are trees on the side of it so you can't see too far. So you drive slower.
Yeah. Nice. Smart.
Rogue says Red Rising is okay.
Sadness. I apologize, but I cannot. I think it's really good.
I know a lot of people who think it's really good. Derry says New Zealand, they're also twisty on purpose to go slower and stop people falling asleep. Yeah, exactly. This guy was also saying that in England, that they consciously do it to keep people awake, basically.
Nice. That's smart.
Yeah.
If only.
Yeah. Anyway, it's 11 in the evening here. I'm going to go play some Spider-Man 2.
Nice. How far into it are you?
I've got the organic suit.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like
Harry.
Just after that.
Okay, yeah. No, I'm just a little bit past that as well. So we're basically playing the same game at the moment, more or less.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, I played like in my downtime where I wasn't reading because I was playing Starfield and Baldur's Gate 3 like a obsessed maniac. I have an addictive personality, but I know the Spider-Man games, and something in them isn't addictive for me because it's like I just get on and swing around for a bit and beat up some bad guys and then get off. You know, it's a very easy pick up, put down game for me.
That's good.
But Baldur's Gate 3 is crack.
Oh yeah, I picked up Cyberpunk 2077 recently, and that, especially after the update, is absolute crack.
Okay, I will stay away from it for a while. I think.
I if you have Starfield and Baldur's Gate 3 on the back burner, I would stay away from it for a hot minute.
Yeah, no, what I mean is I already played Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield up to the point where I'm like, okay, that's enough.
Okay, cool.
I played the crap out of them. I mean,
Yeah.
I really spent way too much time in those worlds. And now I want to do things like read and make videos in my free time. And I'm about to have an awesome cat. So
yeah,
I have other things to do for now.
Yeah. The Cyberpunk like poked kind of the same buttons that a lot of the Borderlands games did for me.
Yeah, I played Cyberpunk when it came out.
Yeah,
when it was a buggy hot mess.
I only had a PS4 at the time. I'm like, not doing it.
Yeah, no, I also only had a PS4, but I played it when it was a buggy hot mess, and it was still pretty amazing.
Yeah,
you know, but I'm really interested to see what they've done with it. But yeah, I'll leave it for a while. It'll be there. Later.
Yeah, it'll be there. It's not going away. Trust me.
Yeah. So Central Illinois needs to have curvy highways. Exactly. Like I've driven across America in both directions, and it's really hard to stay awake.
True.
Pretty much all the way until you get to the mountains on the East Coast. It's just a straight shot all the way across. And if you're not doing detours and going off on the side tracks and stuff, and then
you just gotta have bookstore stops.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I was stopping in a lot of cities, visiting people along the way.
Nice.
But even a lot of the cities, like Albuquerque, New Mexico, the whole city is just a grid. I mean, like exactly the same grid. Like every block in the entire city almost is exactly the same square.
No personality.
It's so boring. It's so boring. There are nice things there if you know how to find them, but the city itself. And what I also love about living in Europe, living in Berlin, you can walk. Like you can't walk anywhere in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Los Angeles. I mean, New York is a very walkable city. Chicago is pretty walkable, but like LA in the West, they don't even have sidewalks on most streets.
Yep.
Like it feels dangerous to try and walk somewhere. Because you're either walking in mud off the side of the street or you're walking on the street. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely a different thing. I think it's very interesting.
Room games.
I think it's very interesting to think about like things like the law that was passed in California about like, hey, we're going to get rid of, we're only going to sell electric cars by 2035 or whatever. And then they passed a similar law in Virginia that I know the Republicans are trying to get peeled away. And I look at that, I'm like, that's not feasible for America for a variety of different reasons, mostly because the range of electric cars sucks.
Distance.
In America, you have to have range.
Yeah.
Like it's not feasible to do road trips on electric cars.
I mean, the thing I've been waiting for them to come up with is some sort of battery exchange program. Like where you can drive in, pay a fee, and just take out your entire battery and get a new one and keep going.
That would just require a whole cartel worth of difficulties.
Yeah.
Within the different companies.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not crazy about electric cars, to be honest. I don't have a car. I don't own a car.
Yeah.
Haven't owned a car in 15, 20 years. And in Berlin, I don't need it. But in Berlin, they've got a really good car sharing program.
Yeah.
Where you just sign up and with your phone, you go up to the car and say mine, and it opens and you drive and it just keeps track of it and charges you, a bit per kilometer. That's cool. And I just used it yesterday, day before. And most of their cars are electric cars. And first of all, I have no idea where I could charge it if I needed to. And second of all, nobody can hear it coming. They're basically silent. Some of them have
it's really weird.
A kind of noise, artificial noise built in for this reason.
Like the electric Mustang. Oh my gosh, that laugh. I laugh every time I hear about that.
Even not ridiculous ones like that. They'll have a little bit, like they basically make almost no noise. So they put in sort of a bit of a hum artificially, so that people can. But I just getting out of my neighborhood, I almost hit a guy because I was going down the street because of my car, and I kind of am meant to be going down the street, and people don't usually step out in the middle of the street. Cars coming. This guy did. He didn't look. He couldn't hear it. Stepped out, and I had to brake suddenly. I was like, damn, yeah, you need to drive even slower in neighborhood roads with an electric car.
Another reason why they don't work in America.
Yeah, exactly. Derry has discovered escape room games. Myst I played back in the day. That was like an 80s game. I played the hell out of that. That was amazing at the time. And the Room, they're okay, but they're keeping me busy. Love the grid system because it helps you. Yeah. I mean, I spent a lot of time in New York, and the New York grid. I mean, it's kind of annoying because if you're going in the wrong direction, the blocks are really long because New York's grid is like these really long, thin blocks. So they're really short on one side, really long on the other side. And it does help you know where you're going. They're easy to navigate if you don't know the city, which is the cool thing about a grid system. The bad thing is they're boring as hell.
I'd rather have difficult to navigate because then it requires some, good old fashioned gumption, right? Or map. I don't know.
These days, like
just have GPS.
I remember having actual maps. Like you had to pull out a street atlas. And
yeah, back in the day when my mother would print out a MapQuest before we go on a big trip.
Yeah. Or I used to have, even before MapQuest, I used to have in my car, I had like 4 or 5 different road atlases just stuck under the seat. So, because I did a lot of long distance driving, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm going to Sydney. I'll pull out the Sydney map and whatever. Derry correctly says that I lived in Canberra. How can I call anywhere boring? Canberra is the boringest of boring. Doesn't mean nowhere else is boring, but Canberra is the boringest. That is totally true. Canberra's the capital of Australia, and it is one of the most planned cities in the world. When you study urban planning anywhere in the world, you study Canberra and Brasilia because they are the most planned cities in the world. And that makes it really interesting in an abstract way and really boring in a practical way. Like living in it is really boring. Yeah. You have to have range, and people who own them have a way to charge them, and apartment dwellers don't have a place for that. Yeah. It's a bit better in Germany. I can't remember exactly where it is, but I know that I've walked past a charging station that's just on the street in my neighborhood. It's not in a petrol station or something like that. It's just standing there on the street. Yeah. So those do exist, but I think that charging station has space for 2 cars. So as long as we have only 2 cars in my entire neighborhood that are electric, it's fine. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to park there.
Basically. And let's not mention the fact that most grids aren't ready to support a whole wealth of electric cars yet.
Yeah.
Especially California, which is the funniest, like the funniest and the saddest thing is that California's grid is already screwed up and they're about to put electric cars on it. What's I hope you're trying to, fix the grid you already have before you put more weight on it.
I mean, the good thing, I think, this is kind of how progress works. Somebody decides we're doing it, right?
And break something.
And then it doesn't work, but it's already been decided. So you work out really quickly at that point how to make it work. So I think it's good to decide, we're doing this, and it will be so good for a number of things, and it's going to be really a massive clusterfuck for a while, and then it'll get figured out.
Yeah.
Because
still waiting for everybody to realize that we should just, get more nuclear, because that's the best that we can do.
Don't say that in Germany. Germans are crazy against nuke power.
I understand that, but they also screwed themselves. Anyways, with the whole Russian situation because of that.
Yeah.
They screwed
Exactly.
their energy independence because of that.
Yeah, of course.
But
And I mean, really, I guess the real problem with nuclear power is when it does go wrong, it's a horrible tragedy. You know, it's
yes,
like a
but
really
at the same
obvious,
time,
big,
like,
horrible tragedy.
it is still the safest
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
any other energy. Like, it's still the
Numbers-wise.
safest per kilowatt hour.
Numbers wise, but emotionally, it's not.
Yeah, and that's the
You
problem.
know,
Is people
like
emotion.
coal is much worse health wise,
Mhm.
but
And so are wind and solar.
it doesn't look worse. You know, because the bad effects are cumulative over a long time.
Mhm.
Like coal energy doesn't explode and kill everyone and make an area uninhabitable.
True.
You know, when
And
nuke goes wrong, it's
theoretically, wind could
pretty
do that
horrible.
because, like, one of the issues that I've seen with a lot of wind turbines is, just what's the name for it? It's some type of shear, like fiberglass shear. Basically, the fiberglass sheds, and it'll ruin crop fields and all this other jazz around it. It's like, what the heck?
Okay, that's interesting. Because
Yeah.
around here, like Germany, wind everywhere. Denmark, even more. Denmark and Sweden, Scandinavia is just wind turbines everywhere.
Mhm.
And you get used to it. I used to live on a farm in the middle of nowhere in Denmark. And after a while, you don't notice the in the background anymore at all. And then someone comes to visit and they're like, wow, you've got a lot of turbines right here, don't you?
Yeah.
And it's very, I mean, it's quiet, but it's this constant sort of far away background noise. There you go, dairy. Yeah, it's banned in Germany as well. The thing that Germans complain a lot about, or that like we have protests and
wild.
there's a very active group protesting it all the time, is nuke waste gets either buried somewhere in Germany, I think partially, but also gets trucked through Germany from other places. And they don't want that happening.
I don't know. The thing about nuclear waste is we actually have a way, like there's a way that we know about that we can actually use nuclear waste and create even more energy out of that.
Sure.
And like the only issue that's holding us back is it costs a lot of money and nobody's going to fund it.
Yeah, and I've been waiting for them to just, like, when the first time I started looking at nuclear waste and everything, I was like, just figure out a way to shoot it into the sun relatively easily. I mean, the sun doesn't care. It's like,
so far as we know,
this much. I mean, the huge ball of burning gas, and we're shooting this much into it, you know, or even just out into space. It's like there's a lot of space.
There's a lot of space, but that could I don't know.
I mean,
we could probably find a certain trajectory that'd be fine, but I guess like in a million years it'd come back to bite us, I guess. That's what I would expect. Who knows? Some alien comes back like, why are you throwing your trash at us?
Why have you been shooting radioactive shit at us for 100 years?
This is an act of war.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
why we're not doing it.
I'm actually kind of the camp that I'm a aliens pessimist. Like, I believe that aliens exist somewhere. Intelligent life exists somewhere in the universe. I think it's more likely that it does than it doesn't. And if we ever meet it, we're fucked.
Probably.
That's pretty much my take on aliens. The whole peaceful, you know, first contact. I
think it depends on how we evolve. Like I like the idea. I think the idea that has really been like I reading some Ken Liu stuff has been really interesting with his thoughts on some of this as well. But the thought of the great filter that we haven't reached yet. I'm just like, okay, this is why we haven't made contact with humans, because there's this great filter that
Fermi paradox.
Aliens, where we just haven't gotten past it yet. So
I mean, to me, the thing is, if we meet aliens before we can travel almost anywhere we want, then they will be more advanced than we are.
Oh yeah.
Because they're so far away that they've managed to get to somewhere we are, whether it's Earth or we've gotten to other planets. Like if we haven't gotten out of our solar system and we run into aliens, it's up to them what happens.
Mhm.
Totally
We're
not
trapped.
us. Like we're screwed. Like they're enlightened, like completely enlightened, and they
Mhm.
decide to be really nice to us, or we are food or slaves or whatever for them.
Yep.
You know, that's all that's going to work. Anyway, I wanted to get off, and we started having a too interesting conversation. It's been a pleasure, Pete. It's been a pleasure, everybody in the comments. Thank you for joining me, joining us. I think we got 4 or 5 people total on screen with us today. I want to keep doing this. I generally have sort of Sunday evenings free, not always, but usually. And I want to keep doing this, like inviting other people on, whether they're booktubers or commenters or whatever. So keep an eye out. Sunday evenings, Sunday afternoons. Thank you so much, Derry. It is actually wonderful to be back as well. I'm glad I pushed myself a little. I've got a new video coming out tomorrow, which is mostly me rambling on about what I should read next and not deciding in the end what exactly to read next. And it ended up being this, which is awesome. Slange to you too, Rogue. Good to see you. Are you Irish, Scottish, something? I heard you also elsewhere commenting, "What's the crack?" So that's very Irish. But anyway, good to see you all. Have a lovely week, and I'll see you next weekend.